So I'm going to say a few words before we begin our service. I'll do a much deeper welcome in a moment. But first of all, now that we've quieted it down a little bit, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom again. It's good to be with all of you. And when I say it's good to be with all of you, it's not just who's here in the room, but we also have people who are joining us virtually, family and congregants who couldn't make it this afternoon. And so we want to kind of bridge our online and community that is coming to us virtually and community in the room. One of the miracles of technology that we can create this community through time and space is pretty miraculous. And so I just want to say a few words to those of us who are joining us online, whether on Zoom or on YouTube. Please know that we welcome you and we're so glad that you're here joining us, particularly Talia's family and friends who are joining. And please know that you can communicate via the chat if you want. The family will receive a recording of this video, and so it'll be a way that they know, and particularly Talia, that you are supporting her on this day, and it will really be a touching opportunity for your messages to be received. And so know that the energy that you bring from your homes will be received and deeply appreciated. If there are any questions for the folks on Zoom, we have our engagement director, Abby Garcia, and they would be happy to help you in any way. So just reach out to them that way. I also just want to kind of pre-introduce those who are leading the service with me. We have our chorus and music director, Will Robertson, and I will be joined by Ariella Friedman as the Gabbai Rishon, and the mom of the Bat Mitzvah, Shana, as the Gabbai Sheni. And so thank you for your service leadership this morning. And so with that, we're going to begin with the Nigun. So I'm going to invite you to join your voices with us. Yai, 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 say once again, good Shabbos. I don't think we can say that enough. And so, welcome to Congregation Beit Chaverim. I want to give an especially warm welcome to Talia, who is in many ways the most important person leading services this morning and this afternoon. And that goes to the point that I'm about to say, which is, in many ways, virtually all of us are in the same boat. That there's something that is perhaps a little bit stepping out of our comfort zone being here. For some of you, it may be the first time in a Reconstructionist congregation, and for many of our congregants, this may be the first time that they've attended a Minha service. So it all means that we're growing and learning together. So know that there's a lot of permission to show up as you are, and that with that bridge of everyone stepping out of their comfort zone, we're creating community in that way. So first, for folks who are unfamiliar with Minha, let me explain even what the Minha service is. Minha, which literally means present, as in a gift, is derived from the meal offering that accompanied each sacrifice that was offered in the temple. One place in the Talmud, the rabbis debated whether the daily prayers have their origins in the behaviors of the biblical patriarchs or in the temple sacrifices. And there is this robust debate. So according to those that believe that the sacrifices were connected to each of the patriarchs. It was Isaac that inspired Minha, who, as it says, went out to converse in the fields. And some people even translate the word as meditate in the fields with God. Other rabbis connected Minha, who disagreed, with the Tamid offering. This was the sacrifice that was performed in the afternoon every single day. So Minha is shorter than most services, though today we have reconstructed, as our name suggests, our Minha service some. And what that means, for folks who are familiar with Minha, is that we have added some prayers and some songs that resonate with the Cohen family, that resonate with our chorus, and what our congregation hopes our children connect with. So there will be additional prayers and songs that we have chosen to add to Minha today. And so if we think about the service being guided by Isaac and his meditations, it inspires us to reflect on our own perspectives and our unique relationships with the divine and the world around us and within us. And so in thinking about you today, Talia, who has your own perspectives, who has a distinct point of view, one of the things that is given in our community to someone who reaches Brit Mitzvah age is a prayer shawl, is a talit. And in many ways, it gives you the opportunity to both feel wrapped in the sense of love and community that is imbued in this ritual and tradition, and also it creates your own private prayer space. So in many ways, you get to wear it with your own way of navigating the world and your Jewish tradition. You will wear your talit today as a shalichat tzibur, as someone who is leading the service, and it's my pleasure to invite your grandmother Deborah and your grandfather Michael to come and present the talit. You can talk first and then you can turn.
So Tali, when we were here last week for pictures and rehearsal, I looked out the window and I saw the slide and the swings that you played on when you were 3 and 4 and 5. And down the hall is the room that I would take you for Tat Shabbat. And there was a little plush Torah that was your favorite toy, and you would hug it and you would dance with it. And over here is where we would have the barbecue for Simchat Torah. And in the parking lot is where you would go down that big bouncy house thing. Yeah, for the Purim Carnival. And I was thinking you have a special connection with this building because the building is a metaphor for you. You know, this building has experienced a lot of change. It used to be Young Israel of Toko Hills. Now it's Congregation Bet Chaverim. It's had a lot of changes, but at its heart, at its core, it still has a Yiddish neshama. It has a Jewish soul. And as you go through your life and you have your changes, you'll always have a Yiddish neshama.
January 24th, 2008 was a very special day for many people. What happened that day? Talia Robin Cohen was born. Talia, it would be an understatement to say that you're joining our family. It was an absolutely wonderful event. Your birth had additional significance, though. Everyone should know that Talia Robin Cohen is the first Cohen girl to join our family in 102 years. For 3 generations, the Cohens were only able to make boys. We just did not know how to make a Cohen girl. It required the skills of Shana and David to figure out how to do it. Shana and David, thank you for giving the precious gift of Talia to her Nana and Papa. And Talia, thank you for making your Nana and Papa so proud today. You're going to
And so if you'll present her with her talit. And Talia, I'll join you in saying the blessing. She's going to put it on herself as her. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu v'hit atef b'tzitzit. Amen. So when we chant Ashrei, the formal beginning of Minha, it reminds us that the joy that is available to all those who come together to dwell in sacred community. And then in that beautiful poetry, it speaks to all of the ways the divine presence is a unifier. There's an emphasis that God is generous and gracious to all people and to all creation. This should be true especially of the Jewish community. It is our pleasure to host so many people from different communities, but of particular note, those of you who live in the Eruv here, and perhaps for whom this was your spiritual home once before. And while I know that stepping out of one's familiar Jewish practice into a new space can sometimes feel fraught, a tug between what is familiar and even correct to you, and that which is new and perhaps even strange. It is why I would like to focus on the kavanah of this prayer of connection, of commonality. Many of us have gathered out of our care and our love for Talia and her family. And we also each find our Jewish path to serve the one and all of creation from a place of goodness and care. And even so, one of the tenets of Reconstructionist Judaism is that diversity of Jewish thought and Jewish practice are cornerstone and are welcome, especially when we put the sense of belonging as community together. So please know that the invitation is to participate in whichever way makes most sense to you. Daven the full prayer when we may not. Don't daven. Make this place your home for today the best you can. You are our guest, and we deeply appreciate your presence with us. And with that, you'll find the Ashrei on page 469.
Just so you know, this Ashrei is really one of the favorites for some of us at CDH because Ali Halpert has added some additional words to the Ashrei, which is already a beautiful prayer. So those are not in the outline, but as you learn them, please join with us. Ashrei Yoshei, Ashrei Yoshei B'Techa, Ashrei Yoshei B'Techa, Odeh Elokav Seira. I sing for you. I sing for all that's holy and is true. I sing for all creation, for life and liberation. Every day anew. Ashrei Yoshei, Ashrei Yoshei B'Techa, Ashrei Yoshei B'Techa, Odeh Hallelujah, I sing for you. I sing for all that's holy and is true. I sing for all creation, for life and liberation. Every day I sing for all creation, for life and liberation. Every day anew.
We continue on page 227 with Psalm 148.
I
Turn to page 277 as Talia leads us in the Shema and the Minha.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'dvarim ha'eleh asher Elohim mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'v'lechtecha b'derech v'shavtecha u'v'kunecha v'shartam le'otam yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'einecha v'utatam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha.
We're going to turn to page 475 in preparation for beginning our Torah service. So as we begin our Torah service, probably one of the most notable things is that our Parsha today is not the Parsha that many of us would be expecting, because Talia's Bat Mitzvah isn't occurring on the date that many of us expected. And as Talia and I were recounting, this is 3 times the charm. So like many congregations around the country, even though we were on target for the February for time 2, we felt it would be an undue burden to ask Talia to learn even more Torah, and probably would mean that today wouldn't have happened, to be honest, correct? Yeah. So, but that has been true for all of our Brit Mitzvah. And in many ways, that kind of flexibility and adaptability has been a sign of the survival of our people in so many different ways. And so it makes sense that we would adapt during a time like COVID. But, as one would have it, it's quite appropriate for Shabbat HaGadol. Shabbat HaGadol is the Shabbat that occurs before Pesach. Let's just take a deep breath. Even saying that stresses me out for all of the preparation that comes this week. And the good thing about coming to, and maybe, perhaps because it wasn't a morning service, we may not have spared people, but Shabbat HaGadol, the rabbi is really given permission to give the longest sermon of the year. And so I was going to say, like, I'm not giving a sermon, Talia is, and it will be much more brief than I would. But in truth, the Shabbat HaGadol reminds us of the mitzvah of preparing the Pesach lamb for the offering 4 days before it was to be brought. And even though it only applied to that first Passover in Egypt, it was something that the Israelites continued to do. And during the Passover story, many miracles were performed for the Israelites on this first Shabbat HaGadol. And so in the midst of the plagues that we read about, there were other miracles that were happening. And so while the Israelites were commanded to take their lambs and to tie them to the bedpost, according to Midrash Exodus Rabbah, when they did this, the Egyptian neighbors saw, and they asked, "What are you doing to the lambs?" And the Israelites answered, "This is to be offered as a Pesach sacrifice, as God has commanded us." And for the Egyptians, this was one of their deities, and they gnashed their teeth in anger. But the miracle was that they could not utter or act against their feelings. And so, in many ways, the Israelites were able to go through with their offering safely in a time where we might have thought they would have been fought. And so, for me, this Midrash talks about this desire for us to be able to live our full lives as Jews without the specter of fear, to be able to claim our traditions and to ask for that kind of safety. And perhaps not have even the need of people gnashing their teeth and biting their tongues, literally, but instead actually embracing that kind of plurality in the world. And so I think we feel the same way when we read about the plagues, that we live for a time where the plagues aren't necessary, as a way of understanding God's presence in the world, and it really is through the beauty and through the deeper interconnection that we can find that Minha inspires. So with that, I'm going to invite us to all rise in body or in spirit. On page 475 for Vayihidin Soa Aron, I'm going to invite Uncle Jeff and Aunt Linda Cole to come and open the ark. Paul, if you go stand over there while I present you with your Torah. You'll go over there. Vayihidin Soa Aron, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, Ve'afutzu Oidecha, Ve'anusu Misanecha, Imanecha, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Ulevar Adonai, Mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'Kedushato. Please turn to page 393 as we repeat this call and response.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yadav. Le'adonai charitu, le'chazibura, le'hatiferet, le'hanetzach ve'havod. Ki tov hashamayim ba'aretz, ki tov hashamayim ba'aretz. Shema Adonai v'mamlaka, Elohim ha'aseh romerosh. Romemu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu. Ve'ishtachavu, ve'ishtachavu, La'Adonai L'Kadoshu. Romemu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu. Ve'ishtachavu, ve'ishtachavu, le'Hakashot ki kadosh. Adonai Eloheinu. Yadai, 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 yadai,
Please be seated. Shabbat Shalom. It's so nice to hear real voices. My name is Ariella Friedman, and I'm honored today to serve as your Gabbai Rishon, your guide to the Torah service. In just a minute, we're going to hear Talia Lane, or chant her portion from Parashat Bo, which is found in Sefer Shmot, the book of Exodus. Assisting her today is her mom, Shana, in the role of Gabbai Sheni, or second Gabbai. It's her job to make sure that you're able to hear every word of the Torah as intended, helping out on the chapter as necessary. If you'd like to follow along with the reading, you'll find it on page 8 of your programs. Holly, I've known you and your family since you were about 2, and running around at CBH's Sing and Play. It's where you met Noah and Elena, and it's where all of us mamalas met when you were very little. And it's so wonderful to be here celebrating the Simcha with your family after celebrating many years of holidays. So Josh stole my joke, but it really wasn't that funny that the third time is a charm, but it is.
I didn't think it was a joke.
I don't know, let's get through the Torah portion and we'll see if it's a joke. We're so happy to be here with you today. We know that you've put in so much work over many years to get to this day. I want to invite you to take a moment to just look around, feel all the love surrounding you, feel the love coming to you from Zoom, everybody who's so happy to be here and celebrate with you today. Your community is here with you, your family's here with you, and we're just so excited to celebrate. So as we begin the reading, I will call up each member of Talia's family, who will recite the blessing in Hebrew before and after each reading. This is known as an aliyah. As a Reconstructionist synagogue, we've altered the traditional aliyah blessing slightly to de-emphasize the concept of chosenness. Instead, we focus on the Jewish people having been called to God's service. We know that people are familiar with different versions of the blessing, so when you come up, please recite the one that's most comfortable to you. Both versions are available up here. For those of you staying seated, the Torah blessings can be found on page 479 in your Sidurim. Ya'amdu Devorah bat Yaakov Rivka, Meir Ruven ben Moshe v'Shprinza, Moshe ben Meir v'Shprinza, Sima Yafa bat Ruven v'Miriam, Aryeh ben Moshe v'Sima, Ita bat Kapel v'Chava, Yaakov ben Avraham v'Rachel, Leah bat Gad v'Yosef Meir b'nei Yaakov v'Ita, la'aliyah harishona. Please rise, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins of the Bat Mitzvah for the first aliyah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Li'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato. Ya'amdu Shena Miriam bat Mordechai v'Devorah, v'David Chaim ben Meir v'Shprinza, l'aliyah ha'shenit. Please rise, Shena, who has already risen, and David, parents of Talia, for the second aliyah.
Asher kirvanu lavodato, v'natan lanu et
Chaim V'Shena Miriam Bat Mitzvah La'aliyah HaShlishit. Please rise, Talia Robin, the Bat Mitzvah for the third Aliyah. While the Torah is out, we say a series of blessings. The first one is a blessing for healing. The second one will be a blessing for Talia becoming a bat mitzvah. And the third one will be for Talia's family. So first, I'd like for you to say out loud or put the names in the chat of anyone you're thinking about who is in need of healing, whether in body, mind, or spirit. Please go ahead and say or add their names to the chat now. And we include the following people in our community:
Angela Taylor, Marta Inez Castillo, Tanya Eden, Alan Sugar, Lang Marsh, Sharon Miller, Jerry Falcon, Bob Schwartz, Hillary Bauer, Roseanne Glick, Ronnie Carlin, Loretta Noon, Bob Noon, Esther Myers, Aya Iwatani Weinroth, Tracy Stern Cox, Richard Adler, Richard Cohen, Jenny Williams Cohen, Lois Birch, Beth Ann Bootycamp, Sharon Miller, Rosalie Levy, Pepe Lurie, Naya Brown, Mona Lisa Schultz, Linda Staples, Sarah Kiblack, Darcy Sabat, Amy Kraft, Naomi Stauber, Carla Caraballo, Sarah Griscombe, Marjorie Osheroff, Lee Corfin, Marion Myers, Talia Bat Yehudit, Jesse Drawon.
This is a calm response. Nishevera, Nishevera, Avotenu, Avotenu, Kor HaChaim, Kor HaChaim, Leimotenu, Leimotenu, Hu Yevarech, Hu Yevarech, Meir Hafeh, Meir Hafeh.
Now I'd like to share a blessing for Talia on the occasion of her bat mitzvah. It's not the traditional one. We're both a little weird for that. So I wrote you one. May you hear your own voice and love its sound. It's beautiful. May you create things that bring you joy and delight in the creations of others. May you experience exceptional beauty, love what is ordinary, and help all of us see the magic in everyday things. May you appreciate the unique gifts of our inner dragons and fairies, and help us understand the importance of these gifts within ourselves. May you live your life in a way that lets your curiosity and creativity come alive. May you learn how to best use the power of your inner magic wand, and surround yourself with the people you love, and the dogs, and the cats, and the people who get your brand of magic and your sense of humor. May you find your place in the world, and know in your bones that you are meant to be there. May you be you fully, and only you can figure out who that is. But may you always know that we're with you on the journey. Now Rabbi Josh will offer Hamisha Barak for Shana and David.
So I think that this is a moment where not only is this a life cycle for Talia, but also for parents as well, on the way to seeing their daughter move towards adulthood, and sometimes taking on new eyes to do that takes some blessing. So I'm going to invite the two of you to stand, and Talia, if you'll join them. Mishaberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov V'imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah v'Rachel Hu Yivarech. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless Shana and David, parents of Talia. May you be guided when to pull your daughter close and when to let her go. May you find the way to honor her for the child that she is and the adult that she is becoming. May you be granted joy to celebrate all of her successes, and may you be guided to support her when she is challenged. Grant David and Shana, along with Talia, a length of days, so that you may rejoice together in happiness and peace. And let us all say, Amen. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ken yehi ratzon. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'kuneka, Ken yehi ratzon. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasimcha shalom, Ken yehi ratzon. May God bless you and protect you. May God's face light upon you and show you grace, and may God's face turn towards you, and may you know peace. Ken yehi ratzon. Mazel tov. You're welcome.
We now begin the process of returning the Torah to the Ark, which can be found on page 481. Please rise as I call forward the Torah lifter and the Torah dresser. Ya'amod ha'agbaha. Please rise, the Torah lifter, Mark Cohen. Ya'amod ha'glila. Please rise, the Torah dresser, Sharon Cohen. As the Torah is lifted, we rise and join together on page 481. Yahalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkar Shemo levado, hodu al eretz v'shamayim, hayarem kerem le'amo, tehila lecho chasidah, livnei Yisrael amro. I'd like to call up our second art opener, Lori Cole.
As you've noticed, candy has been passed out, which will be thrown lovingly after we hear some words of Torah, reflections of those words of Torah after we've heard Talia chant. I'm going to invite folks to put your candy to the side. An unknown 11th plague is the crinkling of such noise while Brit Mitzvah children give their Divrei Torah. And so I invite us to give Talia a little bit of energy, both on Zoom in this moment and in this room. Those of you who aren't doing this means that you're still holding the candy, so I'm going to ask you to still put it to the side. Yeah. And so, Talia, I'm going to invite you to read clearly, loudly, and slowly.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for coming to my Bat Mitzvah service. My Torah portion, Bo, is about the last 3 plagues brought onto the Egyptians. Those plagues were a swarm of locusts, complete darkness for 3 days, and the death of all the Egyptian firstborns. God gives all the Israelites instructions on what to do before they send the final plague. The Israelites were to sacrifice a lamb or baby goat and to paint its blood on the door. This final plague was so effective that after it, Pharaoh was finally persuaded to let the Israelites leave Egypt. As they left, they asked their Egyptian neighbors for gold and silver because God had promised them wealth as they left Egypt. The Parsha then tells us how to celebrate the day by having us make the Korban Pesach, or Passover sacrifice, as well as eat unleavened bread, which we now call matzah, not eating any other foods containing leaven. Bo is all about the final plagues and how at last the Israelites are free. But if we look past the celebration, we see a trail of innocent blood in its wake. Why did God have to send plagues that hurt innocent people, particularly children, servants, and cattle? And why did God keep hardening Pharaoh's heart once he was already willing to let the Israelites go? Trying to understand this dynamic, I wanted to see what other scholars have said about this event. A lot of them had questions similar to mine. The medieval commentator Rashi wrote that all of the Egyptians, even the captive ones, were actually guilty and enjoyed enslaving the Jews. So the plagues were an example of justice and not a form of unfair collective punishment. I think Rashi was just avoiding dealing with the problem of God's vengeance. Vengeance only leads to more killing and is never justified. For example, in the final book of the Hunger Games, caution, huge spoiler alert. So close your ears if you haven't gotten it. Once the rebels finally defeat the capital, the president of the rebel base suggests having one final Hunger Games using the capital's own children. She says that forcing innocent children to risk their lives in a brutal confrontation would be payback for all of the children who had been killed by the capital. The hero, Katniss, struggles with how she feels about this idea. Her own sister Prim was killed in the war, but she eventually realizes that doing this would create a never-ending cycle of power, greed, and violence. By harming other people's children, you are being just as bad as those who harmed yours. When I think about one cycle of violence that is impacting us today, I think about climate change and pollution. These problems are harming children and future generations, yet generations of adults before me have not made the necessary changes to solve them. It is as if their hearts have been hardened to what is right before them. I agree with Rabbi Shoshana Friedman, writing on Trua.org, who says that the plagues of Egypt resemble our modern climate crisis. Drought, floods, famines, species extinctions, superstorms, melting ice caps, mosquito-borne diseases, and wildfires. As many of you may already know, plastic pollution is also a significant environmental concern. Close to 80% of all plastics end up in landfills or nature, and that plastic takes a very long time to decompose back into the earth, usually at least a few centuries. Our plastic waste litters every corner of our planet, from the top of Mount Everest to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We dump the equivalent of a garbage truck of trash into the ocean every minute. By 2050, there will be 4 times more the amount of plastic there is in the ocean than there is now. One consequence is that animals mistake plastic for food, think that they're full, and starve as a result. Other discarded plastics can ensnare animals. But it's not just animals being affected, we are too. Plastics break down into smaller bits called microplastics, which make their way through the food chain to us. The average human consumes 70,000 microplastics a year. Bon appetit. Just like the firstborn children, non-Israelite captives, and animals of Egypt were harmed by the plagues of the Torah, those who do the least amount of damage, the kids, the poor, and animals, are being hurt most by climate change and pollution today. Maybe Parshat Bo can serve as a reminder to us that whenever one generation commits wrong, the next generation will always suffer the consequences. Maybe we need to start passing this message down at our Passover Seders every time we recount the story of the plagues. I don't believe that the consequences of pollution have been sent to us by a vengeful God, but instead that we ourselves are walking down a path towards injury and harm. While there was no reversing the biblical plagues, maybe we still have a chance to redirect our path and save our planet from irreversible results. But only if we wake up to the problem. The psychologist Erich Fromm said that the more bad choices a person makes, the more their heart hardens until they reach a point of no return. When that happens, a person might believe that it's their fate to go on as they had before, and that they can't change their path, but they can. If a person's heart softens, it starts a chain reaction that thaws out the ice. The person starts to believe that they can change. When our ancestors saw this natural process occur, they probably assumed it was a supernatural force causing Pharaoh's heart to harden, because what do they know about modern psychology? When they wrote the Torah, they expressed their thoughts the only way they could understand. Over time, we've started to just accept pollution and climate change. We've all seen documentaries and horrifying images, but after a while, we just move on. Sure, we might feel sad in the moment or say, I need to help make a difference. By the time you wake up the next morning, you forget what you even planned to do. I know this because it has happened to me before, but now as I read my Torah portion, I begin to see how we can't keep getting stuck in this cycle of hardening our hearts. Even though it might not be our individual fault that the planet is dying, we are the ones who have to step up and take responsibility. Even if we don't have as much power as a pharaoh, we are a lot more powerful than the average Egyptian. We should still do our best to make the world a better place. We can call our government officials and vote. We can use the internet and social media to spread our influence. We can use our economic clout by not buying from companies that we know produce non-recyclable materials. We shouldn't just stand by and let other people or another generation try to deal with it. While we are not required to complete the task, neither are we free to ignore it. This quote comes from the Jewish text Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. While we don't have to solve the problem of global warming or pollution, we can't just pretend that it doesn't exist. We have to do our part. For my Tikkun Olam project, I've been going around to various streams in Atlanta to clean trash out of them. This trash could float out to the ocean, so preventing it from getting there is extremely important. We found everything from shreds of plastic bags to crushed soda cans to boatloads of cigarette butts, all in or around the water. It's safe to say those were not healthy streams. Even though there is no way we can prevent all the trash in every stream from flowing to the ocean, if everyone joined in, we could really make a difference. If you can't pick up trash, you can support organizations like Ocean Conservancy or Team Seas. Ocean Conservancy helps fight marine pollution through the International Coastal Cleanup every September, when a huge group of volunteers go pick up trash on beaches. They also research and educate people about the trash that winds up in the ocean, and they try to help companies change how they produce and distribute their products. Team Seas, started by Mr. Beast, an incredibly famous YouTuber, is also helping this cause by taking every dollar donated towards his $30 million goal and making sure that 30 million pounds of trash are removed from the ocean. Thanks to all of you who have already donated generously to these organizations. And speaking of thank yous, I would like to thank many people for helping me prepare for my Bat Mitzvah. My mom, who taught me everything I need to know about reading from the Torah and helped me with my prayers in Bar Torah. And even though I like to think of myself as a pretty creative person, I don't think I could ever imagine a mom as great as her. She's been right next to me, supporting me for my entire life, so thank you so much, Mom. My dad? I also want to thank my dad, who created an awesome slideshow and is just generally an amazing dad. My Bubby and Papa Mike, who have always supported me. And my family and friends who traveled from near and far to be with me today, or who are watching online. My Nana, Fran, who could not be here today for the service, but is still a special part of this celebration. And my Papa Paul of blessed memory. Rabbi Josh for leading my service and helping my family go through the Bat Mitzvah journey during COVID. Rabbi Dale for the prayers class and the sushi and ice cream to go with it. And both rabbis for helping me prepare for my Devar Torah. Ariella for leading my Torah service, Will, Gayanne, Ariella, Amy, Mackenzie, Reuben, Amy, and Rob. You have wonderful voices, and I'm so glad you sang in my Bat Mitzvah. Lois Wolf and Ariella for putting together the amazing flower and terrarium arrangements. Heidi for making me a beautiful tallit. While I'm not wearing it today, I hope to wear it a lot in the future. Sherry and Rebecca for my party favors, which are soaps made from all natural ingredients that won't harm the ocean. And Haley and Abby for making sure that everything today, both in the room and on Zoom, goes smoothly. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for those beautiful words. So, Talia, there are a number of people who would like to reflect back to you some of their thoughts at this moment. First, I would like to invite Darcy Cody, a member of our community school, a member of Congregation Bet Kavarim, and a very recent Greek mitzvah mother.
Talia, I want to present you with this Kiddush Cup on behalf of the CBH Community School. You and Addison started in Miss Abby's class in kindergarten, parented me, and I have watched you grow into an absolutely amazing, powerful young woman who has an incredible sense of self. And I hope that as you continue your path into Jewish adulthood, that you use this Kiddush Cup on lots of occasions to celebrate Simchas.
I'd like to invite your parents.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for being here. We are so blessed to have so many people here in the room with us today, family and friends, both in the room and online. I really want to thank all of you for supporting us through the months of Bat Mitzvah preparation that unexpectedly turned into years. And I want to thank you, T, for sticking with this process. What a long, strange trip it has been since 2020, when you started preparing to become a Bat Mitzvah. I know it can be challenging to stay enthusiastic about a day that never seems to arrive. But you've kept your equanimity through the twists and the turns. You've shown a level of perseverance that proves you are already a Bat Mitzvah in all the ways that count. T, as you claim your place within Jewish adulthood, I want you to know I am so proud of you, not just for the time you've dedicated to this experience, but to the life journey you are on and the person, the whole person that you're becoming. Watching you grow more fully into yourself over the years has been amazing. In place of an adorable, if sometimes intense kid, Dad and I now find ourselves in the company of a thoughtful young woman whose wide-ranging interests and astute wit keep us on our toes. While we don't know where your life will take you, we don't doubt it will be a full and very vibrant one. Because T, you have always had a strong sense of what makes you unique, or of what Rabbi Josh in past Devars has called fidelity to self. Someone with fidelity to self knows who they are, believes in their worth, and follows their heart without worrying too much about the judgment of others. Not everyone was born with this gift of being comfortable in their own skin the way you were. You have certainly been my most important teacher in this regard. And even though adolescence can rock anyone's sense of confidence, I still believe that fidelity to self is your superpower, and it's on full display here today. I think it's what has always led you to dive into your interests with such great enthusiasm. You are constantly feeding your curiosity about everything, from anime to Broadway, from the imaginary worlds of novels and games to the scientific wonders of the ocean and outer space, and from high fashion to high tech. Aquariums, museums, planetariums, the theater, they have all captured your imagination and supplied by the library on your, on my iPad. You know what I'm talking about, parents. You are as happy to settle in with a good book as you are to jump into a conversation on YouTube or Discord. You are a natural learner, T. Your enthusiasm is contagious, and I hope you'll always keep expanding your horizons and sharing your own ideas and innovations with the world. Being self-loyal, I think, is also pushing you to develop yourself creatively. During these past few years, Dad and I have watched you start drawing, singing, writing, and acting with increasing frequency and confidence. Of course, the powers of self-expression have always been with you. We know that under the reserved surface lies an incandescent entertainer, someone who can belt out a showstopper from Phantom or Wicked out of nowhere, or don a fabulous cosplay outfit before going out and fearlessly improving with professional performers, or deliver a perfectly timed zinger that cracks up everyone in the room. These instances of full-blown you-ness generally happen on your own terms and not on command, which I think is another aspect of you being faithful to your own internal process. I hope you will keep growing in your artistry and that you will let your love of learning steer you toward teachers and experiences that will help you to embrace it even more fully. T, you have rarely had trouble stating your opinions, as today's bar shows. You have rarely had trouble negotiating for an advantage of some sort or standing up for your beliefs. But you are also incredibly kind, and you have a strong natural desire to befriend others. Through the years, Dad and I have watched you learn to balance the quality of assertiveness with the skills of listening and collaboration, and you have become very adept at doing both. Even though you're not especially interested in talking with adults, which as an only child you're often called upon to do, but time and again you've shown yourself to be a fun, loyal, and generous friend to people your own age and younger, and some of those younger friends are here with us today. You are quick to draw kids out of their shells and seek common ground, and you are equally quick to defend their right to be who they are and to be treated with dignity and fairness. I think this sense of empathy goes back to your earliest years, when the sight of someone about to eat a little bitty strawberry could move you to tears and lead to strenuous arguments on behalf of that strawberry's right to continue existing. You have moved on from that, thankfully. But you still love your friends, family, home, pets, and pretty much all animals, even sharks, with that same fierce tenderness. You are eager to lend a hand for a good cause, whether it's protecting the ocean, packaging school supplies, or volunteering at the food bank. You are a mensch, and I hope you will always act on your instinct to reach out and be an ally to anyone in need. For all the ways that you follow your heart, T, I know that life can sometimes get you down, especially when it feels that your days don't contain as much fun or enchantment as they should. This world can indeed seem lacking in both. Every day brings grim news about events we can't control. Couple this with day-to-day responsibilities at home and school, and it can be a recipe for melancholy, or what you and the internet like to call a depresso espresso. But T, in meeting challenges with an open mind, you have come far. You have developed a sense of humor and perspective of life, on life, that helps you regain your footing when things don't go your way. As you know by now, the quickest way any of us gets to be in charge of our lives is to make responsible choices and own the consequences of our actions. In other words, to adult. However, as every adult knows, even at the best of times, the balance between work and play can feel elusive, and many aspects of life continue to be beyond our control. There are, however, still many things we can do to cultivate happiness. We can keep learning new things and flexing our physical, mental, and creative muscles. We can find a tribe of cool people and animals to love and to love us. We can lend a hand whenever possible and bring light to the darkness of the world. We can turn to the wisdom of our ancestors and of the earth, and we can embrace a spiritual path that helps us find peace and strength inside of ourselves, regardless of what's happening around us. T, you have already started on this journey toward living a fulfilling life. Dad and I know that you have a talent for finding magic in places that others might overlook. And we believe that those with an eye for beauty and wonder tend to have beautiful and wondrous things placed in their path. Melancholy isn't always necessarily a bad thing. As the poets know, it can signify a deeply felt need to matter, to connect, and to understand the mysteries of our existence. There is so much power in embracing this search for meaning, and my prayer for you, T, is that you stay awake to that power, because it can transform ordinary life into something extraordinary. The opening words of your Torah reading are, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Bo el Paro. God said to Moses, come to Pharaoh. The Torah does not say, go to Pharaoh, as one might expect. It says, come to Pharaoh. I like to think that these words mean that the sacred lies within us, and that it is up to each of us to search our hearts for this hidden gem. Just as Pharaoh's fear led him to harden his heart, we don't always sense our own divine wholeness. But T, because you have such a strong inner compass, I trust that you will never give up searching for what makes your heart sing. Our sages tell us that the world rests on three things: Torah, wisdom; avodah, good works; and gemilut chasidim, loving kindness. May you build your world on these three pillars, and may you always feel empowered to fully share your funny, kind, loyal, creative, beautiful self with all of us. You are so dear to me. Mazel tov at last on your special day. I love you. I didn't cry.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, either in person or online or in spirit. We are grateful for your presence. And just so everyone can set their attention span accordingly, this speech will be exactly 7 minutes. Talia.
David.
I'd like to start by asking you the same question I ask every year on your birthday. Why is today a day to celebrate? And of course, the correct answer is because every day is a day to celebrate. Now, today is in fact a special day, your Bat Mitzvah, the day you're officially recognized as an adult. But wasn't this supposed to happen 2 times before already? We thought so, but it's actually appropriate that it didn't happen when we expected. I don't want to talk about the pandemic today, so all I'll say is that despite our plans for 2 previous Bat Mitzvahs, you and the universe conspired to say, hold on, not yet, when the time is right, and not a day sooner. Which brings us back to January 11th, 2008. The day you were supposed to be born. For 2 whole weeks, all I could think was, I can't wait to meet you. Please be born already. But we waited, and shortly before you were born, a nurse described you as, and I quote, overcooked. A phrase your mother did not appreciate. Or to this day. Too soon? Okay, too soon. Just like your Bat Mitzvah, you and the universe weren't choosing your moment based on calendars or control freak parents. There's simply a right time for everything, and you naturally knew exactly when that should be. January 24th, 2008. It's been quite a journey since then. I adore you. I'm good. And I absolutely love being your dad.
And I could easily spend hours just listing incredibly fun things we've done together over the years, and if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop and we'd miss the reception. So, at the risk of embarrassing just a little bit, I'd like to tell one story that I think checks off a few boxes. It was a couple years ago. We went to a play place that had a balance beam surrounded by a foam pit. 2 contestants with padded battering rams play king or queen of the mountain. Now, I don't know if it's from all your years of karate, or your great balance from ice skating, or maybe your mastery of Beat Saber or Breath of the Wild, even your ability to read people's intentions from improv or acting class. But you were dispatching all comers, any age, any size. Soon there was a buzz around the whole place. You remember, 24 new kids appeared out of nowhere. It's like a Bruce Lee movie, attacking simultaneously and from all angles. Not only did you remain unshakable, but you had everybody laughing. You were helping little kids regain their balance while continuing to knock off the bigger kids who couldn't understand what sorcery you were using. You kind of had to be there. In summary, you are playful and fun, considerate to others, not to be underestimated, and when you put your mind to it, really well balanced and nearly invincible. But being a kid hasn't always been easy. You have been knocked down a few times over the years. Some experiences, like having to move from the old home you loved, were incredibly difficult. There were times over the years when your intense enthusiasm for exciting new ideas or activities required a little redirection. Talia, you've come so far, you know that. And recently, or at least recently at the time that I wrote this speech, you yourself were even reflecting on some of those challenges in your younger years. But I don't know if you fully appreciate all the ways you've made things unexpectedly easy to be your parent. For example, do you remember all those talks we had to have about being open-minded and tolerant of all people, regardless of where they're from or what their background is, or
Hold on.
head stick with me, or if they're different from the norm in any way? If you don't remember those, it's because there's never been any reason at all to have that type of a talk with you. Your nature has always been, from a very early age, to be curious and kind-hearted towards everybody. If anything, qualities that might make someone different or unusual have always intrigued you, made you want to learn more about them and celebrate their individuality. Your mom and I, our family, all your friends have always admired and respected you for this. And, of course, for being your own quirky, often hilarious, one-of-a-kind type of person. Also, remember those talks we had to have about being caring and compassionate towards animals? Again, ridiculous. If anything, you were the other extreme. We had to be careful not to draw a face on a banana. Or give the Dixie Cup a name because you fall in love with it. And protect it like a Secret Service agent. To this day, every dog, every cat, every animal seems to know instinctively that you're a friend to them, which I think says a lot about the type of person you are. So Talia, I guess now I'm supposed to give you some guiding wisdom as you enter adulthood. Honestly, I'm just curious and excited to see what directions you'll choose to go. There'll be good days and bad days, but in the end, I'm reminded of the lesson that you and the universe taught us at your birth, and again at your bat mitzvah, and then again at your bat mitzvah, and then again at your bat mitzvah, and countless times in between, which is that you're already on your right path. That's not of our making or choosing. And we're not meant to fully know or understand it, but just to unconditionally love and support you. And to remember that every day, truly every day, is a day to celebrate you.
Yasher Koach. And so, Talia, as your parents noted, that having adults talk to you is not necessarily your favorite thing. That was pretty awesome words to hear, and I hope that you drank that in. But because I'm a kind person, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to absorb that. And I'm going to save my words for a moment. And I'm going to invite us to think about this invitation in this Torah portion where the Israelites are moving into this place of not being certain what the next part of their future is. They go to Pharaoh, they ask to be able to worship out in a ways from Mitzrayim in order to offer and observe their own rituals. And Pharaoh says to Moses, tell me more about this. And Moses basically says, we won't know until we arrive, until we get there. And I think that is a lot about what it means to stand at this moment, but also that for all of us as adults, that we're often in that place all of the time, and to take that leap of faith. And so some members of those who lead chanting in our community are going to lead this chant, Lo Neda Ma Na'avod. turn to page 487 as Talia leads us in the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yikadal ve'yikadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divrach v'rutei ve'amlich malchutei. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'pa'amid ramami naseh ve'yitadar ve'yitaleh ve'yitalal shemei kudashah b'rechu le'elam mikvol berchata ve'shirata
We continue with the Amidah on page 489. We chant the first line together, and then we will chant we'll say the Amidah silently. Please take your time. We'll each go on our own prayer journey. The prayer continues to page 511. When you're finished, please be seated. Adonai sifatatita ufia giteni latena. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. We conclude the Amidah with this reflection of all of the things that are dear to us. This be dear to me.
Feel the love surrounding you.
last part of the Amidah speaks of a Birkat Shalom. It says, so may it be a good thing in your eyes to bless your people Israel and all who dwell on earth in every time and hour with your peace. And I think that even in times, or especially in times like we've had this week, call to mind the attacks that occurred in Israel, that even when things that we hold dear feel threatened, that our compass needs to hold up peace as a possibility. And so I want to offer Rabbi Nachman of Bratslaw's prayer for peace. May it be your will, Holy One, our God, God of our ancestors, that you erase war and bloodshed from the world, and in its place draw down a great and glorious peace, so that nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Rather, may all the inhabitants of the earth recognize and deeply know this great truth, that we have not come into this world for strife and division, nor for hatred and rage, nor provocation and bloodshed. We have come here only to encounter you, eternal, blessed one. And so we ask your compassion upon us. Raise up by us what is written. I shall place peace on the earth, and you shall lie down safe and undisturbed. And I shall banish all evil beasts from the earth, and the sword shall not pass through your land. But let justice come in waves like water, and righteousness flow like a river. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Holy One, as the waters cover the sea. So may it be, and let us say, Amen. So before we arrive at the Aleinu, which is, in many ways, perhaps another appropriate time for me to share some words with you, Talia, because the Aleinu speaks to us about our future responsibility, perhaps of a world that is upon us to create, that we wish to see. And as I heard in your Devar Torah, that you very unflinchingly and appropriately so called out the adults that came before you. And the good news is I think that there are people whose ears are willing to listen, and this is a community that strives to value the voice of our children and to learn from them. And as you step on this side of the threshold, maybe this is why it took so long. You are now one of those adults, right? That there is a way where your voice, who wrote this before you were a Bat Mitzvah, who is now a Bat Mitzvah, has the opportunity to hear and to open your hearts to the possibility of what you can do. And you've already begun to explore and inviting people to go alongside you by the river and pick up trash. And I think that I'm excited for your leadership and your particular unique vision. I just came back from a conference called Hatch. And the founder of this event and the organization called Hatch likes to say it's not a noun, it's a verb. And that what we're doing is hatching a better world. And this organization brings together creatives and scientists and academics and people from all different kinds of fields. Only one religious leader has ever been invited, so I don't know how that was me, but I have felt very appreciative of the opportunity to get out of my Jewish and interfaith world and be with people who are event creators, people who probably have cosplay costumes and who are artists. And one of the things that they believe, what I heard your parents say about you, Talia, is that in the endeavoring of creating a better world, art and music and joy has to be infused. So in between our workshops and sessions, performers sang and offered poetry. And so I bring what I can, which is often my own sense of connection to the oneness that binds us all. And I do that through Jewish language and text. And when I did that this time, there were people who began to unfold and say, hey, I'm Jewish. And someone even recounted to me that they had gone to Hebrew day school and that they had drifted away and that there was something really profound. And they found themselves in a reflection circle offering the words of Hine Matov in song. And so I remember growing up here that you were often at synagogue, I would say dragged by your mom perhaps, and there you were with your book in hand. And, because in some ways your mom is a rule follower and wants to, I know that's shocking, right? And, and it's, in many ways, while she has created a great amount of room for you to be yourself, in those earlier days, sometimes wanting and wishing you to engage in what she loves in the way, and I think that has emerged differently. But for me, I loved that you would come with your book. I loved that you were here in this space. And rather than have you feel forced into something that didn't quite fit for you, what I tried to do is sometimes give you a wide berth, kind of let you know that I saw you and acknowledged you, and really let you be. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that there are so many paths to practice who we are as Jews. And that many of the talents and strengths, your love for animals, your love for singing, those are part of our tradition too. And that you will find a way to bring it all together because in many ways you already have. And so what I have always hoped this place to be is to affirm people who they are, how they are, and that perhaps over time there might be something. And so even when we began this process, you were very clear that you were doing this because it was important to your family. And I admired the fact that you would do this and that your family mattered enough that you would be willing to do that. And that felt particularly profound. I don't know if you would admit it, but I have seen a pride and a joy in the way that you have been able to show up with a sense of presence and a sense of commitment to the process that I think went beyond just your family. And I hope that somewhere in here, and even if it is just for the food, that, which is also a really Jewish way of living, but there's something deeply meaningful. And just like you shared about Katniss, that when we see how she evolves, she continues to discover new things about her. She's able to look at her past and bring her strengths forward. And I know that will be true for you, and I hope that this moment, where you might have felt like you were thrown in an arena, like the Hunger Games, which it is getting time to eat, that you will be able to draw on this moment as a threshold, as a definitive moment in your life that will continue to give you strength, not just for the love of your family, but as your mom said, for your fidelity to self. Very proud. Yeshua Koach. So we turn to page 513, and I would like to invite your cousins, Adam Cohen and Steve Cole, to come forward and open the ark as we all rise and sing the Aleinu together. Just a note, the Reconstructionist version of the Aleinu has slightly different words. Please pray the words that are most comfortable to you. You'll find the more traditional one on the very bottom of the page under the line. Please open the ark. Aleinu Shabbat Shalom V'teku Lav Yotzei Bereshit Shenatan Torah HaTemet V'chayei Olam Natan B'tocheinu Anachnu Korim V'mishavim U'modim Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMalchim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kakachuk b'Torah Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed. Once the ark is closed, you may be seated. Does anybody have announcements? I was guessing that was the case. So as we work to the conclusion of our service, I'm going to invite people to turn into the inside cover of your prayer book. For those of you who are new to our congregation, this is a prayer that has continued to survive since the very early days of the community. It was a prayer that kind of apocryphally was given to Beit Haverim by another community called Shar Zahav, but they don't have, at least folks I've spoken to, recollection of having passed that to us. But somehow this prayer exists with us. We did not write it, but we continue to evolve. And while it speaks of the founding of our congregation as a synagogue that was founded by gays and lesbians at a time largely serving gays, lesbian, and bisexual people, we have continued to evolve as a community and a congregation. As I've often joked, straight people need welcoming synagogues too. And while there are synagogues in Atlanta that certainly are welcome to many straight folks, there are ways where authenticity and being true to who you are isn't necessarily the central values, which were the central values here at the founding of the congregation. And so many people have found their way here. But one of the things I think is really important, that even though it talks about this idea of what LGBTQ people sometimes went through, and having been in Mexico the last week, often still go through there, and as we're seeing here in this country, particularly with folks who identify on the gender spectrum, that there still is a need to be able to create welcoming climates. Very much what we have heard spoken about Talia and her way of engaging is not any different from many of our kids. And what I said to you, Talia, about wanting you to show up comes from the values that I believe this prayer says. You'll read as we offer this prayer together, it talks about this possibility that we have available to us our fullest creative expression. And that to me is such a powerful gift to bestow on everybody. And to know that sometimes that is denied. So to the degree that you would like to join us, I invite you to do so. The version that I have is actually a version that has evolved over time. My understanding is that Beit Haverim will slowly get these updated in our program. Is it in the program?
Yes.
Oh, great. What page? No, I have it. It's not in the program. That's what I'm saying. What I'm going to read is a little bit different than what people have in the program. But you can follow along with me. As LGBTQ Jews, we are aware of the loss of integrity we suffer due to pressures of the larger society. We often feel forced into a dishonest presentation of ourselves, to ourselves and others. The LGBTQ individuals who feel they must pretend to be something that they are not. The Jews who feel they must be alienated from their tradition and community to win larger acceptance. Both are victims of a theft of identity and integrity committed by the sexual, gender-identifying, or religious majority. Creator of the universe, we ask that our hiding draw to an end, that we no longer feel we have to pretend, to promise falsely, to renounce ourselves, and that our fullest creative expression as Jews and as lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and queer people be among the blessings you bestow upon us. Amen. On page 519, we find Winter's Kaddish. I ask those who are observing a Yortzeit or in a period of ritual mourning to please rise. If you are joining us on Zoom or you are on YouTube, I invite you to put in the chat the names of those you wish to have remembered. And those of you who are standing who would like to say your loved ones' names out loud, I invite you to do so now. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach v'roteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh v'chol Beit Yisrael, v'avala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shamayim. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'pa'ar v'tramam v'naseh, v'tadar v'taleh v'talal shmei kudsha parichu, Le'elam mikol berkata v'shirata, tushmechata v'nechemata, de'amiram ve'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yoshvei Tevel v'imru amen. Please be seated. We close with those words, Oseh Shalom Imromav. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us, for all of Israel, and all who dwell on earth.
Peace for my guitar strings and the microphone.
Oseh Shalom B'Roma, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Roma, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru, Amen. Hey! La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, hey! La 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 la.
So friends, I'm going to invite us in a moment to go outside to say Motzi before we have some food. If before you go out, you could return your prayer books to the cart over there, and then let's meet outside. And I was giving Talia some very important Jewish wisdom, which was you can always hide the candy in your tummy bag.